This is Korea News for February 18, 2022. The daily number of confirmed COVID-19 cases is expected to exceed 100,000 on the 18th. The government, which has been reviewing the easing of social distancing, is expected to apply the limited quarantine relief plan, which will keep the number of private gatherings at 6 people for 3 weeks and delay the business hours of restaurants and cafes by 1 hour to 10 p.m. due to the rapid increase in the number of confirmed cases. According to the quarantine authorities on the 17th, the number of confirmed cases by 9 p.m. on the same day had already exceeded 100,000. Accordingly, the number of new confirmed cases announced on the morning of the 18th is expected to be about 120,000 to 130,000, which is 10,000 more than the previous day, 93,135. The government announced on the 18th a plan to adjust social distancing. Instead of extending the business hours limit for multi-use facilities such as restaurants and cafes by 1 hour from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., it is decided to keep the limit of the number of people at private gatherings at 6 people. The new adjustment bill is effective until the 13th of the following month, after the election. The Youth Quarantine Pass, which was scheduled to be implemented from March 1st, was decided to take effect from April 1st. A month later in consideration of site confusion. According to the medical community on the 17th, nursing hospitals across the country are in the midst of identifying the number of people who have consented to the 4th vaccination. The format is voluntary consent, in which only those who want to be fit must express their intentions. However, the hospital received an official letter from the local government stating that employees who did not receive the 4th vaccination should be excluded from work in direct contact with patients. Medical staff who face patients every day have no choice but to accept the 4th vaccination as a practical compulsion. An employee at the hospital raised his voice, saying, "It is against equity to force the 4th vaccination on us only, as it is not suitable for general office workers as well as other hospital medical staff." The situation is similar at a nursing hospital in Seoul. The hospital director also decided not to do the 4th vaccination. A hospital staff member said, "I don't know why they are asking me to get the 3rd dose again because it's not the Omicron vaccine." The majority of the staff who think that it won't make much of a difference after getting the 4th dose and suffering for a week or suffering from the coronavirus for a week, said the hospital staff. With the number of new confirmed cases in Korea exceeding 100,000 due to the spread of Omicron, foreign media are also paying attention to the spread of COVID-19 in Korea. The New York Times reported on the Corona-19 situation in Korea through an article titled "South Korea, a Virus Success Story, Now Finds Its Model Unsustainable" on the 17th. The Times introduced, "For the past 2 years, Korea has waged a successful war against COVID-19 with so-called 3T, tests, traced, and treated, strategies." However, South Korea's health authorities have said that this strategy is now unsustainable and may even be meaningless, as there are concerns that the rapidly spreading Omicron mutation overwhelms the public health system, it said. The Times introduced that South Korea is moving its quarantine policy in a new direction, namely, selection and concentration. It said resources were redeployed to those most vulnerable to the virus, while the common people looked after themselves at home. This new approach has made people accustomed to active government intervention in the fight against COVID-19 unsettling, and dissatisfaction is growing as the number of people looking after themselves at home soars. There is an increasing movement to cancel the vaccine pass, centering on countries where the spread of COVID-19 Omicron mutation has peaked and has come down. Countries that have maintained prudence in easing quarantine regulations are eventually pulling out cards to gradually release the vaccine pass. According to Reuters, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced a plan for gradual easing of quarantine regulations at a press conference after a joint meeting of federal governors on the 16th. Austria will remove restrictions on entry to places other than essential shops and public transport from the 5th of next month. France, which has implemented a strong quarantine policy, is also monitoring the situation and is in the position to release the vaccine pass as early as March. As the spread of the Omicron mutation peaked and the number of confirmed cases halved, the UK lifted all quarantine restrictions from the 27th of last month, abolishing the mandatory wearing of masks and vaccine passes. Denmark removed Corona-19 from the list of serious diseases on the 1st of this month and completely abolished quarantine regulations such as vaccine passes. Since then, Nordic countries such as Norway, Sweden, and Finland have also joined in lifting the vaccine pass. In Switzerland, starting at midnight, shops, restaurants, and cultural facilities will be free. In the Czech Republic, there is no need to show a vaccine pass when entering restaurants, beauty salons, and sports venues. Poland also announced that it would completely lift quarantine restrictions next month. Israel has effectively abolished the Green Pass system, such as Korea's Quarantine Pass, from the 7th. The state of New York has also ended the vaccine pass. Protests demanding the abolition of quarantine regulations such as vaccine passes are also spreading around the world. Protests imitating the Freedom Convoy truck protests that began in Canada at the end of last month have crossed over to other continents and are taking place in Paris, France, The Hague, Belgium, Brussels, Belgium, and São Paulo, Brazil. In a joint opinion poll conducted by the three terrestrial broadcasters KBS, MBC, and SBS and announced on the 17th, Lee Jae-myung, the Democratic Party presidential candidate, and Yoon Suk-yeol, the People's Strength presidential candidate, recorded 35.2% and 39.2%, respectively, and played a close battle within the margin of error. According to the results of a poll conducted by the three broadcasting companies on the 15th and 16th for 2006 men and women over the age of 18, commissioned by Korea Research, and Ipsos, the candidates from both parties were within the margin of error with a difference of 4 percentage points. People's Party candidate Ahn Cheol-soo scored 8.1%, Justice Party candidate Shim Sang-young took 3.7%, and candidates who had no support or don't know recorded 11.8%. Regarding the question of who is likely to be elected president, regardless of whether or not they support it, 40% of candidates Lee Jae-myung and 46.3% of Yoon Suk-yeol answered. In the question of if the opposition party unifies the candidates, who should they be unified, candidate Suk-yeol Yoon showed 42.4% and candidate Cheol-soo Ahn with 45.3%, showing a slight difference of candidate Ahn Cheol-soo. In the confrontation, assuming that candidate Suk-yeol Yoon becomes a single opposition candidate, 36.2% of candidate Jae-myung Lee and 43.1% of candidate Suk-yeol Yoon were counted. When candidate Ahn Cheol-soo came out as a single opposition candidate, 33.1% of candidate Jae-myung Lee and 38.5% of candidate Ahn Cheol-soo. Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung's wife Kim Hye-kyung's order for 10 sushi controversy spread to the so-called suspect Lee Jae-myung next door, and the Democratic Party seems to be perplexed. In a situation where a rebound in approval ratings is already urgent, there is an atmosphere of worry about whether this suspicion is acting as an additional negative factor. When it was reported that the Gyeonggi Housing and Urban Corporation had set up an employee dormitory right next door to Lee Jae-myung in 2020 when presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung was governor of Gyeonggi-do, the opposition party raised suspicions about the pre-election campaign in addition to the use of corporate cards on the 17th. People's Power raised suspicions that a large amount of food, such as 10 servings of sushi, which Kim Hye-kyung ordered through Bae So-hyeon, a former 5th grade civil servant of the Gyeonggi Provincial Office, was provided to the staff of the dormitory next door. It was claimed that the dormitory for Gyeonggi Housing and Urban Corporation employees was actually used as an illegal election camp. Jin Jung-kwon, a former professor at Dongyang University, said in connection with the allegation that there was a dormitory for Gyeonggi Housing and Urban Corporation employees next door to Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung. Professor Jin also mentioned allegations of misappropriation of corporate cards by Lee's spouse, Kim Hye-kyung. Regarding the fact that Gyeonggi-do civil servant Bae So-hyeon delivered 10 sushi and 30 sandwiches to Lee's home with a provincial corporate card, he said, and that's another important thing. After 10 servings of sushi, where did the 30 servings of sandwiches go? Even the predecessors said that it was a mystery that could not be solved. But the moment this story came out, the puzzle was perfect. So, I think it's very likely that he did, he said. I think it's most likely that Lee Jae-myung was used for his presidential election, whether illegal or legal in any way. Korean figure skating signboard Yu Young rose to the highest ranking in the Olympic figure skating women's singles since figure skating queen Kim Yoona. In the women's single free skating at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics held at the Capital Indoor Stadium in Beijing, China on the afternoon of the 17th, Yu Young received 142.75 points with a technical score of 74.16 and an artistic score of 68.59. On the 15th, she finished the competition with a total score of 213.09 points for Yu Young, who scored 70.34 points, which is 6th out of 30 in the short program, and 6th place in the final ranking. Despite the doping scandal, Russia's Kamila Valieva, who was forced to compete in the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, fell to 4th place, so the Women's Free Skating Awards ceremony went as planned. Valieva won 141.93 points in the women's single free skating at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics held at the Capital Indoor Stadium in Beijing, China on the 17th. With this, Valieva failed to win her medal, finishing 4th overall with her final total of 224.09 points, adding to her 82.16 points received in her short program. As Valieva fell from 1st to 4th, the awards ceremony was held as scheduled. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.